Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me, as always, I have a Jer.
Hello.
An Alex.
Heyo.
And Ben.
Wheeler.
A reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support over the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Let's jump right into it. The best card that you're not playing up to date. Alex, tell us about a card.
It's Reanimate.
Now, even Beej could probably say that everyone's already playing Reanimate.
But wait, not true. Only Reanimator players are familiar with this card.
Okay.
So this is an obvious shoe-in card. It's a black sorcery, like one black for a sorcery. Put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Fine. You know, this is what you're using to drag out your
Grizzlebrands and your Ionas.
Your Ionas, stuff like that. That makes sense. It's inexpensive mana-wise. The cost is largely irrelevant in that archetype because you're going to kill them with this. I play this card very frequently in black-based aggro decks as a value card because sometimes one black, pay 2 life, put your Tarmogoyf back into play is perfectly fine.
Holy moly.
Or after you've hand attacked them, maybe you take their Grave Titan or something. There's great little synergies in like black mold specifically, Golgari aggro, where like my homie Lotleth Troll that you can pitch creatures to. You just like play that guy, get a counter on him, and then like reanimate something out of the bin. Or you cast Shriek Maw and then reanimate it.
For the
you get 2 you get 2 Doom Blades. Even stuff like Collective Brutality, you can pitch cards that you want to cast for less mana.
This card absolutely slaps in any deck with Spellseeker also in it.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Being either just rebuying a Spellseeker to get that ability, finding it off Spellseeker to rebuy your, your Palace Jailer, your Shriek Maw, your Eternal Witness, whatever it may be.
Something like a Kalitas or a Hostage Taker, like a big swingy mid-range
it's just
card.
like 1 black mana and a couple of life points is a very small price to pay for getting back some very, very good creatures that aren't like the sort of, 6, 7, 8 drop hammer blows, but still very good.
And even against aggressive decks, it's very good because it lets you double spell super early. So,
All right. Let's talk really quickly about some events that you might see North 100 or greater lure people at. Reminder that on May 4th, the Puget Sound Battleground is happening. There's going to be a Candle Under 1K event there. So look out for Wheeler and White at that event. Get ready to rumble. Reminder that there will be likely a very large lure presence at Magic Fest Seattle coming up between June 20th and 23rd. And there will be a Highlander event there as well. So basically, if you're looking to play the format in paper with some of us and you're in the Pacific Northwest region, get ready, because we're coming for you. That sounded ominous.
Get it.
Hello, friend, let's battle? Is that less ominous?
Slightly.
Okay, good. All right, let's talk about today. Let's talk about today's theme. This is part 2 of our War of the Spark set review. Last episode, we got to the Wooper, but not quite the G. So we did white, blue, black, and red. Today our goal is green cards, gold cards, artifacts, and lands. But first, we asked for some viewer submissions, and we got a lot. We got a lot of viewer submissions. Unfortunately, we can't cover all of them. So we created sort of a short list of cards that we thought would see more play in the format, and I'd like to think that as we discuss these, we'll talk about why some of the other ones weren't as included in much. And as a quick recap, just a reminder that our set review is not exhaustive. We're only talking about cards that we think are relevant in the format or are close and have a playable thing like that. We won't go over every single card, just due to time constraints.
Yeah, Marshall Sutcliffe has that covered.
Yeah, no kidding. So the first card that we want to talk about today is Narset, Parter of Vales. This is a blue planeswalker. For 1 blue, enters play with 5 loyalty. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. -2, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land, and put it into your hand. The rest go on the bottom in a random order. Jer, what do you think of Narset, Parter of Vales?
I'm not actually a huge fan of her for Canadian Highlander. Her static ability is sometimes going to be pretty good, but it's rarely going to be super backbreaking. And the -2, once again, is pretty good, but it's probably not going to win you a game. This card has already sprung up a bunch in Vintage and has been proven to be a powerhouse already, I'd say.
Yeah.
But, so I think that's more her home than Canlander, in my opinion.
It's weird how it would skip over us and go right to Vintage.
There's
Because, I mean, our formats are different.
They have a sideboard.
there's not a lot of
She's
also
getting played main deck.
she's in the main deck. There's not a lot of Goblin guides running around in Vintage. There's not a huge amount of Mantis Riders, Loxodon Smiter. Like,
There's a huge amount of Ancestral Recalls and Paradoxical Outcomes.
yeah,
which
and
she
this
is very good against.
the control decks in our format. And so, like, when you look at this card, I imagine a lot of players looked at this card, saw, oh my god, can't draw more than one card. This is going to lock out blue and combo. But, like, blue decks can kill things now. Blue decks kill things a lot, right? They are either packing Burn, they have 3-power flash threats that can take her down in one swing, and then most of the prominent combo decks in the format, eggs aside, but let's forget about that, don't actually have to draw cards to kill you. And like on the turn that you slam a Narset, they can just stop drawing cards. They can start casting their tutors, their peer through depths, whatever it may be.
Also, if you're going to make use of the 2 bad impulses you get, she's going to have 1 loyalty and, like, your Trinket Mage is going to kill her.
Yeah, non-land is huge.
Oof.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We have Commence the Endgame. 6 mana instant for 4 blue. This spell can't be countered. Draw 2, then amass X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. I know Jer actually started warming up on this card. I know normally I wouldn't throw to the same person twice, but Jer, tell me about Commence the Endgame.
Yeah, originally I misread this card. I thought it was also amass 2 instead of amass X. And I was like, oh, well, you're making a 2/2. It doesn't matter. You're not going to play any other amass cards in a deck that would play this. But I could actually see playing this as a win condition in control decks. For those of you who always ask me about Seinfeld cards, this is a card that could get into Seinfeld.
Ooh.
It's an instant, can't be countered, draws you cards, makes a thing that wins you the game. That's reasonable. I could also see playing it in other dirtily slow control decks that are hurting for win conditions, or just you really want to be instant speed with your win conditions, like you don't necessarily want to tap out for Consecrated Sphinx or Inferno Titan, what have you. This is a reasonable alternative to those if you really want to be instant speed. Not saying it's better, just saying
It's an alternative.
worth trying.
Drago, zombie!
All right, next up, Single Combat. This is another user submission. 5 mana sorcery for 3 white with some sweet art of Nahiri fighting Sorin. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifices the rest. Players can't cast creature or planeswalker spells until your next turn. Alex.
Until the end of your next
Until
turn.
the end of your next
That's-
turn. Pardon me.
that's
Pardon me.
relevant.
Pardon me.
Wait, if you pick a creature, you sacrifice all creatures. If you pick a planeswalker, you sacrifice... Or
No,
it wipes
you
out
get
everything.
one creature or planeswalker, and everything else of those 2 types goes away.
Oh, okay. This is a little bit like
Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker.
Cataclysm,
Yeah,
but like...
kind of.
eh,
No, but your valuation is on the right thought.
Like
You
that-
can look at
that's-
this and think it's
that's the
Cataclysm.
kind of spell it is, but it doesn't seem that...
It's closer to Tragic Arrogance or Divine Reckoning, I think.
It's in the category of cataclysms, of expensive white sorceries that have both players sacrificing some number of permanents that it's supposed to be symmetrical, but you build your deck in a way, or you plot your turns in a way that it will be better for you. The decks that play Cataclysm, a lot of them have started, at least pilots, local pilots, like the Death and Taxes pilot locally has started cutting Cataclysm. Like, Cataclysm ain't what it used to be.
Just in time for me to get a copy.
And something, I mean, it's not bad, right? There's a time and place for a card like that. It's just, if you want this kind of effect, you will probably start at Cataclysm. And then you go down the line. And that's even if you want multiple copies of Cataclysm, which, I mean, you only, like, the first one is great. But then if you do the second one, well, you have to get up to 4 mana again, and then you have to be in a position where you're like, oh god, my board didn't do anything, and then I got a Cataclysm again, and it's, yeah.
All right.
I poo-poo this card.
And the last card we're going to talk about from the fan submissions, and again, I know there were a lot of them, but ideally what we're getting to when we talk about this is even if a card is powerful, it might not always have a home in the format just because it's been outclassed by something older or something new or something like that. But the last card we want to talk about is Davriel Rouge Shadow Mage. I kid, it's called Rogue. 3 mana, 3 loyalty planeswalker for 2 and a black. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, they take 2 damage. -1, target player discards a card. I misread this card in the pre-release. I took way more damage. Alex, tell me what you think of Davriel.
Yes. Okay, so if you tuned in last Friday on Friday Night Paper Fight, you would have noticed that I played Pox, which is a deck, maybe the only deck that this is like a shoe-in into. I think this card is probably going to be sweet in that deck and probably not see play anywhere else because, like, there's not really any other decks that are leveraging hand attack as hard as is necessary to make his sort of, like, Shrieking Affliction, the rack effect be relevant. But in this one archetype, I think he's sweet. It's also really cool looking.
Yeah.
So...
All right, let's continue on with our regularly scheduled set review. Thank you again for all the user submissions. First up, The Awakening of V2 Gauzy. 5 mana instant, 3 green, put 9. That's right, 9 +1/+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a legendary 0/0 elemental creature with haste, named V2 Gauzy, and is still a land.
9.
Wheeler. 9.
9.
I don't like this card. I really don't. It's very expensive. It makes your thing legendary, which High Caracas.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, instant speed is great. 9, that's a lot. Those parts, love that. But you're just like opening your land to just get destroyed with a very expensive spell. And it doesn't get any evasion either. Like people talk about slapping this on like an Inkmoth Nexus, which, yeah, that's pretty sick. But like, other than that, it's just this is not the kind of card I would want to include in any deck, frankly. There are just better, and you will see some of them. There are some better like hammer dropping 5s in green that you can play.
All right, next up, Evolution Sage. 3 mana elf druid. You get a 3/2 for 2 and a green. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Jer.
Better chuck this one over at Wheeler.
Really? I was going to chuck it to Serge.
So the weird, okay.
Well, this is really a twofer, right? Like, you got the land part, which Serge gets all squiggly giggly inside, and then I just like the value proliferate.
Yeah.
This is just kind of in the same thing as Flux Channeler, where repeatable proliferate attack when it comes at the cost of doing something that you're probably already going to be doing is appealing enough to at least consider these cards, because we haven't seen them.
This has got to be sweet with fetches.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's this one is more you're going to get more out of this one than Flux Channeler. I mean, being green is a bit of an if, but like, I don't know.
Does green have any ability to put more lands into play?
So,
yeah,
but the
one or two.
So the issue is, even in Turbo Land, what targets you do? Like, Dark Depths wants less counters, not more. And what few planeswalkers you play, it's not really a build around in a Turbo Land shell.
I don't think you play it in Turbo Land. I think you just play it in a deck that has planeswalkers in it. Like,
oh yeah, but when you look at me and you say the lands part, I don't know if it's relevant in lands. Like, as a lands player, I don't look at this effect and think, you know, the 2 or 3 planeswalkers I play are suddenly going to explode in value.
Right. I don't think either of us are framing this card on our walls, but I do. What I mean is that, like, you'd throw to you because it says land on it and a landfall trigger.
Yeah.
And then
I feel like there's going to be like a Simic Walker's deck that this is going to slap in.
I could even see this in the counters deck, honestly. Like, the body's not that bad.
Yeah.
That deck plays elves, and like, if you play this, then play another 3-drop that has counters and a fetch land, like, you can start popping off, right?
Yeah, that's
Do
fine.
you think the best version of that deck is Doran?
4-color.
Really?
Yeah, that deck.
No red.
I thought that deck was more of like a meme until I played it on
then-
stream and just started like steamrolling people, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm a Traxa now.
All right, let's wheel it back over this way.
right.
Finale of Devastation. X, green, sorcery. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and haste until end of turn. Jer.
This card is very good. Yes, it goes in Hoof. Yes, it goes in Pod. Yes, it goes in all of your other green creature decks that make
My
mana.
brain is melting.
You can... Relevant lines that come up for Hoof is if your Hoof goes away for some reason, like they countered it or they discarded it, you can reanimate it from your graveyard. The X is 10 or more will rarely matter if you can make that much mana in any of these decks. You likely have a lot of creatures in play, and you're just getting Hoof or a way to kill them anyways. So
You can get a Llanowar elf with X is 10 and still win.
that part is mostly
actually.
irrelevant.
Right? You get Dryad Arbor.
Birds of Paradise for the flying.
Right? Like
You're mostly casting this for 10 mana. X equals 8. So
yeah.
you can say you cast it for 10 mana.
This card is so gross.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
very
even
good.
color limited like
Green Sun
Green
Zenith,
Sun Zenith.
yeah.
It's insanity.
That's
Also-
why it's good in Kiki. You
and-
can get Kiki.
And not shuffling too. Like I think the shuffle on Green Sun Zenith is a weird kind of thing where there are definitely times where you're like, well, I wish this was in my graveyard so I can get it with Eternal Witness or whatnot. But like,
Oh, yeah,
right, you
going
just,
to your
like,
graveyard.
This into Eternal Wind. Anyway.
Next up, God Eternal Ronis.
Beep,
5
beep.
mana, 5/5 legendary zombie god with Death Touch. When Ronis enters the battlefield, double the power of each other creature you control till end of turn. They also gain vigilance, and it has a new god clause. Do you want me to just throw this right to Wheeler?
I think medium green might be my favorite medium deck now. And this card, I got to play it in medium green. Oh god. Like this card absolutely just tosses people aside. Like it's difficult to deal with. Death Touch is on a 5/5 seems kind of funny, but green is a color that can easily give things trample or not, depending on how the ability is worded. And obviously the God Die clause is cool, but I haven't even gotten to the part that most people are thinking about. It's this ETV trigger where you just like play this in any green base mid-range deck. Basically give your team indestructible or at least make combat a nightmare for your opponent and crunch in. And yeah, I was kind of like down on this card, or not necessarily, but I was like, this is cool, but it'll fade away. But like after getting my hand on it.
Sorry, when it says double the power, does that take into account counters as well?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, double.
Oh yeah,
and
this
equipment.
Yeah.
Ronis is like Captain Crunch, as in it's the captain now, and it's gonna crunch in on your life total, and
Oh,
you die.
man.
The end.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we got Nyssa, who shakes the world. 5 mana walker. You get 5 loyalty for 3 green. Static ability. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green. +1 ability. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target non-creature land you control. Untap it. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with vigilance and haste, and is still a land. And -8. You get an emblem with lands you control have indestructible. Search your library for any number of forest cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Alex, what do you think of this card?
Seems like she combos with forests. It seems great. It ramps. It protects itself by making threats, and then it'll just kill your opponent to death forever.
Yeah, seems solid.
But whether it's going to unseat comparable staples in something like Hoof, IDK.
All right, next up, Nyssa's Triumph. Green sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic forest cards. If you control a Nyssa Planeswalker, instead search your library for up to 3 land cards. Reveal them, put them into your hand. Blah, 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 blah. Put those cards into your hand. Hand?
Shuffle.
Put them into your
Then
hand.
shuffle.
Then shuffle.
Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your library afterwards.
Why did we add this card?
I don't know.
What?
Because it has the highest ceiling of one of any Magic cards ever printed.
Yeah. Have you ever wanted to triple Sylvan Scrying for green?
It says
It's
any
any
land,
land.
if you have a Nyssa. Any land.
Any
you search your library for
land.
any 3 lands in your deck and put them into your hand.
Any land.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, needing to have a Nyssa in play is a pretty big deal. Like, it's not always going to happen, not reliable. But the worst case is it's like double lay of the land in one card, so it's still card advantage technically.
It's fine. It's like,
You certainly wouldn't put that card in your deck, but if
land.
if you're slamming a bunch of Nissas, getting any 3 lands in your deck, you probably win the game very shortly, or you built your deck incorrectly.
like if you're playing a green-white, kind of like looking to Titania, strip people out, or Coder with
No
dark
idea what
depths.
that'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, not familiar. Like green-white or Abzan.
All right.
And your thought is, okay, well, I might get ranched by a Blood Moon here, but if I get out enough green sources, I can cast a bunch of my answers to Blood Moon, or at least operate normally. And this card lets you do that, and those decks also tend to play multiple Nissas.
Yeah, including the one that's up there. All right, fair enough. Next up, Paradise Druid. 2 mana, 2/1 for 1 and a green. Has hexproof as long as it's untapped. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Alex, what do you think of this card?
Huh. It fixes, and it's a pain to get rid of. How would you guys compare this to something like...
Sylvan Carrier.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It's worse. But it's better in Jeskai Ascendancy.
Yeah, that's not wrong. This one can attack.
This is the best card that Jeskai Ascendancy's got in a long time.
A huge boon to the archetype.
I mean, that's fair. Yeah, it sees play in a niche archetype.
There are instances where you will find, obviously, Caryatid is at the top, but there will be instances where you just need to untap with a dork, and then you feel comfortable. And I think this card can fill the role in some of those decks. 2 power is also just not anything to, ignore. Relevant too, that if you, I don't know, I have this thought of like, you playing this in a deck that also has equipment, and this just kind of sits around with hexproof, and then you slap the pro sword on.
They can't kill it in
And then
response.
they can't kill it. Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Next up, we have Pollen Bright Druid. 2 mana, Elf Druid for 1 and a green. You get a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or proliferate.
Pocket pollen.
Ben?
Okay. Again, cheap proliferate. I actually think this card's real in the counters deck. Like if you ignore Flux
Oh, shit.
if you ignore Flux Channeler and Evolution Sage and all the other garbage that I've been trying to convince you guys on, fine. But this one, 2-drop proliferate, creates a body, can also just play it out to have a relevant, well, not irrelevant, but at least a bear or pump something else. I think this card will find a home for sure in the counters deck, and cheap proliferate's pretty good, and we haven't seen a lot of it, so please don't get too angry at me about all these inclusions.
All right.
Are you asking Magic players to not be angry at you?
Yes.
Bold line.
Bold.
Return to Nature. 2 mana instant for 1 and a green. Choose 1. Destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or exile target card from a graveyard. Alex seems excited. Alex, tell me about this card.
But wait, there's more. It's naturalized, but they added one thing that it really wanted to do. Do you...
Jared looks happy.
Well,
Ben
there's
looks
a, there's
unhappy.
the
No,
up and
Ben-
down and side to side here.
Ben thinks it's a good card, but he wants them to stop printing this playable garbage because it always beats him.
Why? Why do you have to attack my graveyard too?
We both think it's good.
Yeah.
Ben just hates it.
All right. Fair enough. And the last green card we're going to talk about today, Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. 3 mana Planeswalker for 2 and a green. Comes into play with 4 loyalty. Static ability. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach. -2. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card and you may cast it if it's a creature card. Jer,
This card
have you seen
is
this?
not prepared for that.
For those of you on the audio version, Beej switched to the anime versions of the Planeswalkers here, which are very pretty, by the way.
She's
moe.
so rad.
You
This might be the way to get Beej into paper magic.
Ooh.
He's nodding. This card's pretty good. I'm not sold on it, mostly because you only get to look at 3 to find a creature. The static ability is very good. The +1 is but it's a 3-mana planeswalker that has a plus ability, so like, you know, it doesn't need to have a lot of text. It's going to be very good against control, so if you have a lot of control in your meta, could slide this on in and likely going to be pretty good. But I don't think I'd play it in most decks in most metas.
All right. Well,
She's great for medium green.
let's move on to gold cards. Our first gold card today.
Sorry, I just wanted to be fair and then also show the Nyssa.
Oh,
Because it's
Whoa!
actually pretty wild.
Oh my goodness.
yeah, have you seen all these cards? You
Yeah,
know,
no,
they're so good.
Just not all of them up close.
Yeah.
So what flags do you have to trip to get this
Oh
one?
my god.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Angrist Rampage is our first gold card.
All the weeb is on this side of the room. I just realized.
It's like a gradient.
Yeah. No weebs beyond this line. Angrist Rampage, 2-mana sorcery, black-red. Modal card, choose 1. Target player sacks an artifact. Target player sacks a creature. Or target player sacks a planeswalker. Alex, what do you think?
This is a lot like the a card 2 cards ago that we talked about. It's an edict that hits a lot of stuff and you get to pick. I think this card's kind of cool. It's a shame it's a sorcery, but like it's gonna hit a lot of things. Sacking a planeswalker is exciting because like you, broadly speaking, if your opponent has a planeswalker, they have 1. And if they have 2, this is still gonna be good.
Yeah.
So
Next up, Ashiok, Dream Render. 3-mana hybrid planeswalker for 5. 1 blue-black hybrid, blue-black hybrid. Static ability. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. So notably, if they control it, they can't search your library. Wait.
They can still bribery.
Oh, this isn't Aven Mind Sensor. Aven Mind Sensor would protect your library from their bribery, so it functions slightly differently. Pardon me. -1, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into the graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard. Wheeler, what do you think of this card?
First, they attacked my artifacts. And then they attacked my library. And now they're going after my graveyard, too. I feel like a lot of people will play this card more than it probably deserves play.
well, because they're gonna play it to hose you.
If by hose you mean like a fireman's hose filled with ranch that is just blasting at me, then yes, I will be hosed by this.
They have to hope he's not on medium green.
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh,
this
yeah.
card does stone nothing in about 50% of your matchups. So
Hell yeah.
So a Fire Hose of Ranch has a real Guy Fieri vibe to it.
Okay, well, back to the card. Yeah, the high
Town Fire Department.
Well, the hybrid cost makes it pretty appealing. High loyalty, sure. Repeatable graveyard. See, like all these things form a card that seems like would be really good, but I have it's no even mind sensor. Like my least favorite part about the idiot bird is that it kills me.
is that it's an idiot.
And it's an idiot, and it has flash, and you can also just like the excitement whenever anybody casts it. Like, oh, Wheeler's about to tutor.
You're casting Demonic Tutor?
And I know they have it. I know they have
On
it.
turn 1, they go like Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox. They're like pass.
or the plains mana crypt go, and it's just like, okay.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, look.
You're looking down at your hand of 3 fetch lands. You're just like, yeah, I'll concede.
Yeah.
They're hanging weights off the corner of their mouth to keep them smiling.
This card just feels like a meta call, and even then, I'm not super sold on it, and that's not just because I'm salty.
If you're playing like a best of 7 against Wheeler, then I could see including it, but otherwise probably not.
Next up, Casualties of War. 6-mana sorcery for 2 black, green. Choose 1 or more. Destroy target artifact, creature, enchantment, lands, and or planeswalker. Jer.
I think this is far too expensive. It's rarely going to catch you up in the way that you need. Like, if it destroyed all, if it was like destroy all creatures as the mode, then it would be playable and still not amazing in our format.
Oh,
it would be
one
pretty
of
good.
each?
Yes.
Ooh.
But you can't. Yeah, it's not going to catch you up enough for it to see play, I don't think.
All right. Next up, Cruel Celebrant. Cruel Celebrant is a 2-mana vampire for a white and a black. It's a 1/2. Whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. Wheeler?
Does this card go in Aristocrats?
Yes, moving on.
Yes. All right, Death Sprout. 4-mana instant for 1 black, green. Destroy target creature. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Alex, what do you think?
That's a lot of mana to kill a creature.
And ramp.
And
I'm
ramp.
excited for this card in Wilderness Reclamation decks.
I have no
that-
idea what.
I played it in one of the paper fights. Wilderness Reclamation's the enchantment that lets you untap all your lands on your end step.
Remember that bug deck where nobody could resolve anything?
Yeah, it was miserable.
Interesting.
So you think it had a home exactly in that deck? What about something like the Rock?
No.
Shift, maybe. Like if you're on like
Yeah, maybe shift.
a 4-color shift or the Jund shift.
Double
is-
black's probably pretty hard in 4-color, but probably
Yeah.
easier in Jund.
Totally sweet art, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
it's
art
great.
is
Sled
on point.
McKinnon. All right, next up, DSpark. DSpark is a 2-mana instant for a white and a black. Exile target permanent with CMC 4 or greater. I am not 4 for you. Kalima.
Kalima!
Wheeler.
I think this card has got a lot of conversation surrounding it, but the best part about Abrupt Decay is that a lot of things are 3 or less, and it can't be countered. 4 or greater is a lot. Like, there's a lot of small things coming into the format, and while it's nice to have a cheap answer to the big things, a lot of cheap answers already exist that can attack both big and small. Exile's cool and good, but the combination of, being Orzhov color and only hitting 4 or greater, I feel will leave you dying to a lot of Brimaz's, Swords,
Goblin Guides.
Guides.
What matchups do you play removal for, Ben?
I tend to play removal when I don't want to die to Brimaz's, Swords,
Early threats.
Goblin Guides.
Nice. How many of those does this remove?
Well, DSpark only hits 4 or greater, and if we're talking Brimaz's, Swords, and Goblin Guides, none of them. None of them, Jer.
Good talk.
Yep, great.
Next up, Domri, Anarch of Bolus. 3-mana planeswalker for 1 a red and green. Enters play with 3 loyalty. Creatures you control get +1/+0 static ability. +1 ability, add a red or a green. Also, creature spells you cast this turn cannot be countered. -2, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. Jer.
I really like this card. It makes your... that art is sick. The Japanese art for this card is awesome.
Ooga chaka.
The Anthem effect makes playing Mana Dorks a lot more appealing, and you're almost definitely going to be playing Mana Dorks in this deck. Casting this on turn 2 against a control deck is going to make their life absolutely miserable.
It's a trend with 3-mana Domries.
Yeah. Ramping you is also quite good, as well as going 3 to 5, making your 5-drops uncounterable. That's often the first turn. If you're on the play, the control deck's going to want to hold up a counter spell, and now it's absolutely useless.
Like, you can go turn 1 dork, turn 2 this, another dork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then turn 3, God Eternal Ronis.
Or
Swing for 1 million.
or uncounterable Primeval Titan. Take your choice.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And then also having, like, people who have played a lot of Hoof and played a lot of Domri and Hoof, or played a lot of Pod and played a lot of Domri and Pod, know how valuable the Domri Raid, know how valuable the -2 fight on that card is. Just because you can't afford to really put much removal in that deck, so having incidental removal is so huge. And so I think people are going to underestimate that ability a whole lot, and it's going to be very good. And this card is very good.
Next up, Domri's Ambush. 2-mana sorcery for red and a green. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Alex. Notably not a fight, it deals damage.
Yeah, it's like it's one-sided fight, pump your creature. Sorcery, though.
Wheeler.
I think this card's actually pretty all right. Like, again, if it doesn't see play a year from now, sure, whatever. But because it's just another removal spell in a long line of removal spells, but it also just offers something that we haven't really seen before in colors that kind of get that. Like, being able to pump your guy is cool. Your creatures are going to be able, like, the power of your creatures before the counter are already going to be able to kill whatever it is your opponent has. But like, just giving that added bonus lets you do some tricky things with elves or your 1-drops or whatever. Being able to get around awkward death touch creatures too can be tough for those decks. And then also being able to
flying. Like you can hit like flyers.
Yeah,
and
that
stuff
too.
like so.
Like sometimes you will get outraced by like a deck that has Lightning Bolt and Vendilion Clique. But the hitting a Planeswalker is the part that I think solidifies this card, because again, being able to boost up your creature to make sure that it's able to comfortably attack, not wasting your combat step on attacking a Planeswalker.
And then also hit their life total.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Attack their life points directly while being able to get their Planeswalker out of the way.
All right, I've got 2 control cards. I'm just going to throw them both to Jer back to back here. I have Dovan, Hand of Control.
Whoops.
Oops.
Oops.
Almost.
Sorry.
This is his
Okay.
signature spell. Wait for it.
Should we just talk about this one?
We'll talk about this one first.
Yeah,
we'll talk about Dovan's Veto first. So
All right.
2 mana instant, white, blue. This cannot be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. Control expert, Jeremy White. Your
Best
evaluation,
card in the
please.
set. Play it in all your blue-white decks. It's good against Ben and everyone else. So, yeah.
Now, this over negates,
Yep.
even though the mana cost is harder?
Yep.
All right.
It's not actually that hard.
Why not both?
Yeah.
Cool.
If you're Esper, get Counter Squall in the mix too.
I'm putting it in my deck. I was not going to play it in my blue-white tempo deck because, like, this mana is hard. I'm just going to play negate.
Oh, Snufflin.
Well, I thought it was fair. All right, let's go back to the original one we were talking about. Dovan, Hand of Control. 3 mana legendary Dovan. Casts for 2 and an Azorius hybrid. Enters play with 5 loyalty. Artifacts, instants, and sorcery spells your opponents cast are 1 more expensive. -1 until your next turn. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent and opponent controls. What do you think, Jer?
I'm not a big fan. It is good with Wraths, and does sort of make things slightly annoying for your opponent if they're not on creatures. So it like does both affect creatures and non-creatures. I just don't think it does enough for a control deck. When you're playing control, you need all your cards to either be super efficient or incredibly powerful. And this card is reasonably efficient and moderately powerful, and you just really want like either end of the scale. This card's too middling for control, I think.
All right.
This is a stacks card.
Yep.
Hey.
Ancient Tomb mana.
Stacks.
Yeah, play this on turn 1.
Everybody.
And it's only one-sided, which is very exciting. All right. Dread Horde Butcher. Red and a black. Black and a red gets you a 1/1 zombie warrior with haste. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Alex.
I'm free now. I love this card. I mean, it's a Slith that you're always going to get something off of.
But it's a zombie in red.
That slightly annoys me.
Yeah.
But it's a warrior.
Yeah, I mean, the creature types are kind of like a garnish, but, you know, like haste, Kraken, it gets bigger, and then when it explodes, any target is pretty big. Like creature, planeswalker, or player, that's huge. Like you could slap equipment on this. This might actually just go right into aristocrats as well.
Pretty cool.
What do you
Can't
think?
tell if memeing me or not.
No, I'm serious.
I don't think
actually
so.
thought I thought about it for Mardu maybe.
Yeah,
but like
Not in 4-color for sure.
it's
Maybe
I think
in
it's
Mardu.
I think it's even a bit too aggressive for Mardu. Though.
All right, next up, we have Stretch for Time. I lost my place. Enter the God Eternals. 5 mana sorcery, 2 blue, blue, black. Enter the God Eternal deals 4 damage to target creature. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. Target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard and amass 4. Ben, what do you think?
Just want to. So this is kind of like a new version of Ribbons of Night, which shout out to my players from 2008. So like it's expensive for sure, but this card has a lot of text on it. Being able to pop out a creature, self-mill yourself. Pop out a creature, feed your delve, your snapcaster, your whatnot, gain some life in blue-black, which you never see, and ideally kill their best creature. This has enough on it that I'm willing to consider playing this spell.
It does a lot.
Yeah, it does a lot. Like, a lot. Like, remember when that baby cruel ultimatum came out and people were like, oh, wow.
Dark Intimations.
Yeah, a baby
That card
cruel
was not
ultimatum.
good.
But, like, didn't do anything. But this is actually kind of like this baby cruel ultimatum.
Yes.
Yeah, just make sure you make the noise.
Every time you cast it.
Yeah,
Crocodile.
All right. Next up, we have Feather, the Redeemed. Legendary Angel. You get a 3/4 for red, white, white. It has flying. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. Jared, what do you think?
I think this card's pretty good. A 3/4 flyer for 3 is very impressive stats. So if you're a Boros aggro deck in base white, you're likely playing this just for the stats alone. And if you're playing like a Naya double strike style of deck, this card is also very efficient.
Yep.
You play a lot of pump spells in that deck. Rebuying your pump spells are good. Once again, this card is difficult to remove. It is legendary, which is a pretty big downside, but I think you could play it. It's not a staple or anything, but
cool. Next up, we have Gleaming Overseer. Zombie Wizard 1/4 for 1, a blue, and a black. When it enters the battlefield, amass 1. Zombie tokens you control have hexproof and Menache. Alex.
Nah.
Ben?
Oh my god, you're right. I compare this very unfavorably to Diagraph Captain.
Yeah, as
Which,
just a lord.
like, if this wants to be in, like, the zombie deck, and for the exact same mana cost, you could have a 2/2 that gives your whole team +1/+1 and Death Touch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm no zombie expert, but I think that I didn't start talking for that bit, but well, here we are. I think this could probably be fine, right? Like, am I missing something? It's 2 bodies on 3, and hexproof and that's a lot of abilities. And this card will be difficult to deal with at 4 toughness, right? And if they do, you didn't invest too much, and you still have the
And
token.
it doesn't just give your amass tokens hexproof and menace. It gives all your tokens hexproof and menace. I'm just worried you'll have cards, not tokens, and then it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this isn't good in the zombies deck. Maybe there's some sort of, like, blue-black deck that just incidentally you're getting ready to do it again. It incidentally makes, zombie tokens, and this is going to get some value off of it. And 4 toughness isn't so bad. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
All right, moving on. Watleys Raptor.
Oh my god!
What's the art trying to do there,
Yeah,
Ben?
Ben, what's this?
All right.
If you're gonna keep doing that, you have to orbit your mic.
Yeah. All right. It's a dinosaur.
They had a clear art direction
I'm
this set.
sorry, B. There's
For those of
3
you-
in a row.
So for those of you listening to the audio version, have no idea why we're losing it. All of the art in the last 3 cards feature very prominent open mouth and like a big comical V thing, and it just keeps happening. Watleys Raptor is a 2/3 dinosaur for a green and a white. It has vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, Ben Wheeler's favorite word, proliferate. What do you think, Wheeler?
It's a cheap proliferate card, but this is somewhat reasonable. Like a 2-mana 2/3 with vigilance. It's not winning any awards in 2019, but it's better than a bear. I don't know if I'd actually prefer this over Pollen Bright Druid, which seems like a weird thing to say, but the flexibility of being able to pump something that already doesn't have counters is pretty cool, or just like synergizing with Hardened Scales in a different way is also cool and good, but I don't know. I'd give this a shot.
Next up, Living Twister, which I'm going to throw to myself. Red, red, green gets you a 2/5 elemental. 1 in a red, discard a land card. Living Twister deals 2 damage to any target. And for green mana, return a tapped land card you control to its owner's hand. This is Trade Routes, this is Oboro, this is Seismic Assault, this is everything I want in a magic card. On a 2/5 that comes down on turn 3, It's going to protect
Or
you.
turn 1 if you have fast bond.
Welcome.
All
Welcome home, little friend. Next up, Mayhem Devil. 3 mana, 3/3 Devil for 1, a black, and a red. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. I'm going to throw to Alex.
A player. Any player.
Any target. Yeah. Whenever a player sacks a permanent.
This card's hot.
Yeah.
It's a 3/3 for 3, so like the body's already just like better than you would expect for this kind of thing. And in Aristocrats, you're going to be sacrificing plenty of stuff. But wait, it also cares about your opponent's fetch lands.
Hey, you don't sack anything in eggs, do you, Ben?
Not a thing.
Okay.
I actually don't think this card's good enough for Aristocrats.
Really?
Really?
Continue.
I've played the deck a fair amount, and lots of times you really want to be able to use the combat step to get your triggers to trade off creatures. You don't always have a sack outlet in play.
Specifically because it says sacrifice and not when it dies.
Yeah, and I think that's a very large downside.
I think if this wasn't a 3/3, I would definitely agree with you.
Yeah, but Aristocrats doesn't want a 3/3. Like the size of creatures in Aristocrats is like so largely irrelevant.
I feel like this card's going to be doing so much more damage off of what your opponent is sacrificing, like clues, fetch lands, whatever it may be, Sakura Tribe Elder, like all these weird. There are so many cards having been absolutely dirted out by like Angel of Jubilation. There are so many things that just you don't process as sacrifice that have sacrifice.
All of a sudden you get 3
Yeah,
GRVs at a competitive event. And
I could totally be wrong, but that was just my read.
It's also a devil unicycle that's exploding.
Oh my god.
Scott Sweetheart. Next up, Merfolk Skydiver. 2 mana 1/1 Merfolk Mutant for a green and a blue. It flies. And when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. 5 mana, 3 blue, 3 green blue, proliferate. I'm going to throw this one to Wheeler.
I don't know why a fish is in a lightning storm tornado. I don't.
Have you seen the movie series Sharknado?
All right, moving away from the art, what do you feel about the words on the card?
Well, I like 2 mana of 2/2s that have flying, Serge.
Yeah.
So that also have more flexibility when it comes to than just being that. I don't know if you'll ever use this proliferate ability. That part doesn't even need to be there. But a 2 mana 2/2 flyer, I will take that.
Cool.
I'll take anything.
Next up, quite possibly one of the spiciest cards in the set, Neoform. Green and a blue sorcery as an additional cost. Sorry, it's an uncommon.
I forgot this had a counter on it. I
Yeah.
was thinking about this morning.
Yeah.
And now it gives a counter.
All right, let me introduce Neoform. Green and a blue sorcery uncommon. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and then shuffle your library. Jer.
All right. This card actually is worse than I thought it was. I thought it said or less on it. It's still insane. It's still very, very good. It's still like put it in your pod decks, put it in your mid-range decks, put it in all your decks still. But I just had that realization. This card is sort of like a pod activation or a mini Eldritch Evolution. Both those cards are insane. This card is
Also good.
maybe better because it doesn't exile itself, which is huge. It allows for
You can get an Eternal Witness
Yep.
and make it a 3/2 and then get back Neoform.
Yeah.
and then you sack the Eternal Witness, get something that gets back Eternal Witness, or you
Archaeomancer.
or you sack another 3-drop, go get Resto Angel, blink your Eternal Witness. Then
Is
you
there
sack,
anything that you would want to get that really benefits from entering with a +1/+1 counter that you wouldn't normally be able to do?
Proliferate creatures.
Incubation Druid?
Oh yeah, Incubation Druid's kind of a sweet line.
That seems like a waste.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
I'd
Yeah.
rather just try and set
Yeah.
up infinite
Yeah.
turns or kill my opponent.
I agree. But
All right, let's move on. Next up, Nikobolas.
oh, sorry. Back to Neoform for 1 second.
Sure.
It is also spell seekerable. You can get it with spell
That's
seeker. which is
that's the
a
big
huge
one.
one as well.
Right. Nikobolas, Dragon God. 5 mana Planeswalker, but the 5 mana is blue, black, 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 red. Enters play with 4 loyalty, has the static ability, has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. Kind of a flavor fail. It should be all Planeswalkers in graveyards, but I digress. +1, you draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control. -3, destroy target creature or planeswalker. -8, each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or planeswalker loses. Alex.
Oh. This is a whole lot of really scary text, but I don't play Grixis control-y style decks, so I don't know if this is going to make its way into those. What do you guys think?
I don't think it goes into traditional Grixis control. It's probably very good in Super Friends if you can manage a way to cast it. It's a reasonable card regardless, but I don't think it's like a slam dunk auto include. 5 mana is quite a bit.
Yeah, it's strong, but it's also costed for that strength, which
Yeah.
makes it tough.
I mean, we should probably mention the thing that people are going nuts over, which is how it combos with,
Jace Cunning Castaway.
which in Highlander is probably not that great.
As someone with the self-proclaimed largest number of reps with Jace Cunning Castaway at 3 tournaments, no, I wouldn't ever play these 2 cards together, or this card by itself anymore.
All right.
Okay, next up, NIVizzen Reborn. 5 mana dragon for Wooburg. You get a 6/6 flying legendary dragon avatar. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each color pair, so just like all the guild colors in Ravnica, for each color pair, choose a card that is exactly those colors from amongst them. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Wheeler.
This card's great in my Joda commander deck, but not for this format. I've tried, and Lord knows I've tried to figure out if there's a way that this card could do anything. But the decks that get up to 5 colors have far too many colorless mana rocks to allow them to get to 5 colors. Or they're just going like Curd Ape into Tarmogoyf into True Name Nemesis or Geist to Saint Draft. Maybe Hypergenesis plays that, but I'm stretching to...
I had a joke answer and a less joke answer.
yeah.
5-color dragon stuff.
But I don't even think that's good in
Like
five.
how many?
Okay,
Dragons.
So many of the dragons are 3 color.
The issue here is the upside you get. Like worst case scenario, this is a 5 mana 6/6, which is very
That
hard to
costs
cast.
5 colors.
At
That costs
Wooburg.
5 colors. Yeah, it doesn't have a powerful ETB effect. You really need to be able to draw cards off of it to get any value.
Here's my less joke answer. Lucky Charms.
I talked to Liam about it. He doesn't think so. but-
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, the Charm deck definitely has a lot of hits.
So.
Huh.
You once again play a lot of the 3 color charms in that deck too.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, next up, Oath of Kaya. Oath of Kaya is a 3 mana legendary enchantment for a colorless, a white, and a black. When it enters, yes.
Sorry, just the artwork I realized is that peace and then fade out of existence.
When it
Anyway.
enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent attacks a planeswalker you control with 1 or more creatures, Oath of Kaya deals 2 damage to that player, and you gain 2 life. What do you think, Jer?
I'm not big on this card. 3 mana, sorcery speed for a lightning helix is pretty expensive. The decks that are looking to play this card are going to be more defensive decks, and it only triggers when they attack a planeswalker you control, not when they attack you. It might gain some additional value. It's a nice life buffer, but I just don't see it personally.
That is a really nice jacket.
Yeah, that's fair.
I could see this in maybe Mardu.
Yeah,
That's it. Like
maybe.
a Mardu mid-range, but...
Next up, Ral, the Storm Conduit. 4 mana planeswalker, enters play with 4 loyalty, costs 2 blue-red. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. +2 ability, scry 1. -2 ability, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets. Alex.
Ben seems like he's doing air guitar for this.
I'm just mocking. That's
wow.
that's that good stuff right there.
I'm gonna play discard a bunch.
All right, Jared, tell me about it.
Discard goes infinite with 2 copy spells or copy effects, because then they can just copy each other, and its static ability triggers off copying or casting an instant or sorcery.
Copy resolves,
Which
copies
is
the copy,
sorta-
the copy resolves, copies.
And then you
sorta-
just dome them.
Sort of the first time that's really happened, as far as I'm aware.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you go infinite with like a fork and an expansion, or a fork and another fork. Yeah, you get the picture.
Yeah. You
Other
played
than
it
that,
outside of combo?
it's like, no, I'm not playing it in like, it's not a dedicated combo deck. It's like a combo control deck, but you're never playing this in a dedicated combo deck. But you definitely are only playing it if you have the ability to combo, I think.
Okay. Next up, Alasc Apex Hybrid. 5 mana, gets you a 4/5 legendary human mutant for 2 green/blue, has flying and trample. When it enters the battlefield, put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, so notably can't target itself. When it dies, proliferate, and then proliferate again. Honestly, the fact that this is the first time I've stumbled on this word and we're an hour in amazes me. I'm proud of me. It has the favorite word in the set. Ben, tell me about this card.
I don't even. Did I put this on here? I mean, I think this card's better than what my initial read of it was. It has a lot of text on it. That's usually a good sign. If your opponent crackuses this card in a deck that is deciding to play this card, it's probably bad news bears for you. 5 toughness on a threat is always nice to have.
It has Flample.
Yeah, Flample. Flample is pretty cool and good. And then if they kill it, you proliferate twice, which a deck that is looking to put as many counters on as many things as possible seems pretty good. But I could see this as like a top end and already greedy strategy, which kind of bypasses the fact that playing this seems very greedy. So yeah.
All right, next up, Lee Sublime Artificer. 3 mana planeswalker that basically reads, if your opponent has that 1 mana sorcery that kills it, they're just going to cast it. I made that joke on Tap Concede. 3 mana planeswalker for 1 blue-red hybrid enters play with 5 loyalty. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Now, servo, not Thopter, they don't fly. -2, target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Jer.
This card is very, very good. This is almost certainly the best uncommon planeswalker in the set, and might actually just be the best planeswalker overall in the set. I haven't thought too much about it, but this card's really, really good. It does a very reasonable young pyromancer impression, with the upside of potentially being able to turn your 1/1 Chunguses into like crackling drakes for a turn, which probably kills your opponent. True Name
And also
Nemesis.
not dying to Doomblade.
Yeah, and it dodges most removal, like red, and you're not down ticking that much, so it's like it's gonna stay at 5 loyalty pretty well unless they are attacking it or you're killing them. So that's pretty good.
Cool. Next up, Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord. 4 mana planeswalker for 2, a white and a black. Static ability, as long as it is your turn, creatures and planeswalkers you control have lifelink. +2, Sorin deals 1 damage to another target player or planeswalker. Wait, it could target itself. I don't know why, but it could.
What?
This says to target player or planeswalker. No, I inserted the word another, which was incorrect.
Okay.
-X, return target creature card with CMC X from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is now also a vampire. What do you think, Alex?
I don't know. Like, I like the 2 other 4 mana Sorins, because they just spam the board up and they gain you a lot of life anyways. The +2 is like really anemic.
But it's a +2.
It adds
It
up.
is a +2. I suppose it's going to add up, and eventually you're going to be able to like get something huge back. Although, like, this doesn't go into Reanimator.
No.
Going to Sorin Da.
Yeah.
But like, what deck that is going to guarantee itself to have something worth returning is going to play this.
I could see playing this in Aristocrats.
Yeah. Like when we covered the Planeswalkers and talking about how it doesn't have the defensive capabilities of like just giving your team lifelink on their turn, but just to free everything you have as lifelink, you're a deck that likes throwing things into combat and being able to rebuy whatever thing you sacrifice to get it again, sacrifice to dome them for approximately $1 million. It's pretty good. And again, like that uptick, right? It adds up.
Yep.
You'll die to this card.
Welcome to North 100 and Aristocrats podcast.
Oh, God.
Next up, Storev Devkarin Lynch. I think I nailed all those words.
Lynch.
Beg your pardon?
Damn it! Oh, I got the hard parts wrong and the easy part. The hard parts right and the easy part wrong. I'm sad about this. So our Lich friend is a 5/4 for 4 for 1 black green. Gets you a legendary zombie elf wizard. Has trample and whenever deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, return to your hand target creature or planeswalker card in your graveyard that was not put there this combat. Who's up now? Am I back to Jared?
Better toss this one to
this is
Alex.
an Alex
Yeah.
card.
Alex, what do you think about this card?
I like this card. It's a shame that it doesn't have haste, but trample's going to make it trigger more easily.
Oh, sorry.
No, okay, I'm instead of trample, but like trample's going to make
sure.
it easier to trigger. The clause of not getting back stuff that got there this turn is like kind of annoying, but not that bad. I think this is a cool card. I'm not positive where I want to play it because like 4 CMC is a very coveted slot in
Black Mold.
in Black Mold because like everything there has haste, just about, and this doesn't. But it's 5 power for 4, gets in, gets back value.
You think Witsy's playing the rock? Wheeler and Jared just shaking their heads now. All right, fair enough. All right, let's move on. Next up, Teferi, Time Raveler. This is a 3-mana planeswalker. Comes into play with 4 loyalty for 1, a white, and a blue. Static ability. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. +1 until your next turn. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card. I'm going to throw this to Jer.
This card's either going to be really good or really bad. I don't think I'm going to play it very much. It's very good against blue decks. Otherwise, very bad. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's very good in combo control. That's probably the only place I'd actually play it.
Next up, we have 10th District Legionnaire. This is a 2-mana 2/2 for red and a white, has haste, and whenever you cast a spell that targets it, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and also scry. Alex.
Are you okay?
It's just sneezing, pardon me.
So there's like kind of the framework of I think we were talking about Naya Double Strike as a deck, just like a deck that plays pump spells, and I could maybe see this getting into it because like
This is such a Boros card.
it's very, very Boros. I like that it's not a temporary pump, and haste makes it really, really sweet. And also just like getting a scry means it's like, oh, let's look for either I need a threat or another pump spell for next turn.
Yeah.
Seems like a perfectly efficient little creature.
Next up, we have Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge.
Stretch the
My apologies. It isn't in our set.
Huh.
Oh!
It's numbered 275 of 264.
It's the buy a box promo.
Oh!
Yeah, this is the Buy a Box promo.
Sneaky.
So, Tezzeret, 6 mana, gets you a 5 loyalty planeswalker, costs you 4 blue-black. Static ability, creatures and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts.
Never thought we'd see that again.
Yeah. +2, Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control. You also gain X life.
Whoa, what? Plus?
Yeah. Well, it's 6 mana. -3, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. -8, exile the top 10 cards of your library. Put all artifact cards from amongst them onto the battlefield. And notably, you cannot cast... Tezzeret itself doesn't have affinity, so you can't cast it for like 2 if you control a bunch of artifacts. I'm going to throw this to Wheeler. Because you play a lot of weird artifact decks.
I like how you said 6 mana, like you've never tapped a Tolarian Academy before. Like, I don't. This card is good. There's not much to say about it. It's a big Academy finisher. I wouldn't necessarily play it in. Well, I 100% wouldn't play in like Paradox or anything like that. But if you're playing just the good old-fashioned add 20 mana, cast a Ugin, cast a Wormcoil or whatever,
Wildfire.
yeah, play this card. Yeah.
I like the word wildfire. All right, next up, Time Wipe. 5 mana sorcery, 2 white, blue. Return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. Control player Jeremy. How do you feel about this new Wrath?
Not a control card. It's a mid-range card. This is one of the best mid-range Wraths they've ever printed. Mid-range, you're always on the fence about whether you want to include Wraths or not, and you usually end up including things like Comeuppance or Settle the Wreckage or Toxic Deluge in an effort to kill all of your opponent's things while not killing all of your things. And this does that. You get to keep pick your best thing, whether it's like a value ETB creature like an Eternal Witness or a Snapcaster Mage, or just your best thing like a, I don't know, big creature like a Titan or a Consecrated Sphinx, and then recast it after the Wrath. I think this is a pretty good mid-range card. I'll definitely test it. Not sure if it's good enough. Wraths you often want to come down before turn 5, but if you're a mid-range deck, you often have a lot of efficient removal and or creatures to block. So you're usually pretty good at living until turn 5, but tough to say.
Hey, Teferi, meddling with the timeline like this isn't going to have any unforeseen consequences, is it?
Oh, Teferi's very familiar with suffering.
He's just like,
And
no,
time.
not at all, with tentacles coming out of his eyes.
Yeah.
All right, we got to keep moving real quick. Apologies. Next up, Tyrant's Scorn. 2 mana instant for blue and a black. Choose one. Destroy target creature with CMC 3 or less, or return target creature to its owner's hand. Alex.
This seems kind of neat. Like, Smother is a card that exists. I don't see a lot of play with it, but it's probably underplayed. And this is just that, but more. It's like, it's Unsummon plus Smother, and those are both pretty good cards. So, yeah.
All right, let's move to artifacts. Firemind's Vessel. 4 mana rock, enters play tapped. Tap to add 2 mana of different colors. What do you think, Wheeler?
Paradox Engine. That's all I'd play it in, probably. Maybe like, again, the blue-black Academy deck, but mostly just Paradox Engine.
Next up, we have Guild Globe.
Oh my.
This is a 2 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, pay 2, tap, and sack it, add 2 mana of different colors. I'm going to throw it back to Wheeler.
This might be the best 2 mana egg of all time. In fact, I think it probably is the best 2 mana egg of all time. Like, being able to draw a card when it comes into play, great. It already meets the egg qualification. But and it doesn't come into play tapped, so you can sacrifice the turn it enters play. So this allows to create several different, like it just adds to different loops as well. Like this makes one of your Academy Zurin Orb Second Sunrise Shredder loops a hell of a lot easier because Second Sunrise needs white. And so this can actually fill the role of, which sounds so stupid to say, it can fill the role of Black Lotus in some of your loops.
Huh.
Yeah, like people are going to be watching this or listening to this and thinking that I'm just blabbering, but this card is huge.
Cool.
This is huge.
All right, we have the new Karn up next. 4 mana gets you Karn the Great Creator, enters with 5 loyalty. Static ability, activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control cannot be activated. +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its CMC. And -2, you may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal it, and then put it into your hand. Jer.
Because we don't have sideboards and thus don't have cards we own outside the game that are attainable, this card is not playable in our format.
Thank God.
Yeah, Ben's probably still going to lose to it because of the
Someone's
static
gonna
ability.
play it anyways?
Yep.
He has been null rotted before.
Yep.
And this card is probably better than null rod. Tough to say.
Ouch.
Yeah, there's just other more efficient cards that do the things that this card functionally does in our format. Like there's Stony Silence and Nullrod if you really want to beat Ben, and if you really want to turn your creatures into or non-creature artifacts into
Silver Golem.
creatures. There's Silver Golem. There's Sidri. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's other things that do it better for less mana that also do other things. So use those.
All right, last colorless card we're going to talk about is Ugin the Ineffable. Oh, I'm wrong. Mana Geode. 3 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, scry. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Do we care about 3 mana rocks?
No.
Not unless they add
this
2.
one.
Then that's sort of the baseline. Even though it enters and scries, if it doesn't tap for 2, it's not good enough.
If it drew a card, maybe.
All right.
If it drew a card, yeah.
Jeez.
That's just an interesting baseline and conversation to have of what it takes to be a good rock, and Mana Geo does make the cut. All right, fine. Ugin the Ineffable, 6 mana planeswalker, enters play with 4 loyalty. Colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. +1. Exile the top card of your library face down and look at it. You get a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. When that token leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into your hand. -3, destroy target permanent that is 1 or more colors. Wheeler.
This card is very expensive. Well, not when you're playing the kind of decks that I want to play it in, but it is pricey, and often those decks aren't looking to slap down a threat, deal with something, and then pass the turn. Honestly, just having the flexibility of, if you absolutely need to, start drawing more cards by making the tokens or whatnot, pushes this into something I'm willing to consider for certain archetypes. But mostly you're just playing it because you just get to poop out eggs and draw cards and kill people that way.
Cool. Let's move on to lands. First up, we have Blast Zone. Blast Zone enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it. Tap to add colorless. For XX and tap, put X charge counters onto Blast Zone. 3, tap and sacrifice it. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on the Blast Zone. Now, I added this card. I want to talk about this card. When I added it, I thought it did a couple of different things. I thought it was Pernicious Deed. I thought it was equal to the number of counters and under. So a couple of downsides on this card.
Really?
Yeah. So this is kind of an odd ratchet bomb, and another downside that I see to this that I didn't consider the fact that it comes in with 1 counter is kind of a downside. There's a lot of very powerful things that cost 0 in this format. Moxen, tokens being some of the big ones. I mean, obviously when they changed the rule for flip cards, the backside used to be 0, not quite as good. So I'm less hot on this card than I was previously, but the fact that it's a land that it's an uncounterable thing that can deal with a lot of things, and if you have a bunch of mana, you can quickly ratchet it up to deal with certain threats, offers some unique flexibility, but it's not the hotness that I originally thought it was.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
The reason being the opportunity cost of putting in some decks is just so low, and there's a chance it just wins you the game. Like if like a hoof or a pod deck just have like a super elf heavy land light draw, you can just like play it on 4, sack it to completely neuter their mana out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah, I guess just play it
against
crack it immediately.
an academy deck. Sometimes being able to get it up to 2 counters and blowing it on 2 counters if you have some sort of ramp yourself, like you have a Soul Ring draw or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd be sweating if I saw this come down across the table and tick up 1. Because it's like, well, this is going to be Pyroclasm next turn. Actually, worse than Pyroclasm because it's going to kill my Tarmogoyf.
All right, cool. Next up, Interplanar Beacon. So it's a land, has a static ability. Whenever you cast a Planeswalker spell, gain 1 life. Tap to add colorless, or 1 tap. Add 2 mana of different colors. Spend it only to cast Planeswalker spells. Wheeler.
In the Super Friends decks that I tend to enjoy playing, you might get a little bit greedy on some of the mana sources you're playing, and this can help deal with that. I mean, you don't play it for the top. You don't actually play it. Like, gaining some life is actually, I mean, it's kind of nice against aggressive decks, or the fact that you're tapping Ancient Tombs, frantically sacking fetch lands to try and fix your god-awful mana base. But this also helps, right? Being able to fetch out specific duels to play your 4-drop walker, and then filtering your Soul Ring, your Ancient Tomb, your Mind Stone to properly cast a 5-drop walker, or whatever it may be. Yeah. This obviously very narrow application, but I think it's at least worth testing in a 4 color or more Super Friends list.
Next up, Karn's Bastion. This is a land. I mean, we're in the land section. Tap to add colors, or pay 4 tap, and proliferate. Ben.
I wouldn't play this in the counter. Maybe I would. I don't know. This card seems no matter what I say, it's probably going to be incorrect. I could say this card's good and it won't see any play. Say this card's bad and it turns out to be the best new card for counters.
Hard to evaluate.
Hard
Probably
to
good in Super
evaluate.
Friends as well.
Yeah, it's like super. Again, it's extremely low cost to include in those kind of decks. Super Friends, if anything, will want to play this, and if you have the Interplanar Beacon, it kind of makes up for the fact that this is just another colorless land.
And the last card we're going to talk about in today's set review is Mobilized District. So enters play as it's a land, tap for colorless, or pay 4 mana. It becomes a 3/3 citizen creature with vigilance until end of turn. It's still a land, and it costs 1 less for each legendary creature and planeswalker you control. Jer, talk us out. What's the last thing we're looking at
Alex
here?
seems excited for this.
Alex, what do you think about this
It's
card?
just so wholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also like a good critter land.
Yeah.
It's really nice that they're praising Bolus's Citadel in the background, right?
No, they're aiming to the left, out of frame.
No, they're praising the Citadel.
They're mobilized against the Citadel. They're not
Yeah, they're
praising it.
mobilized to go to the Citadel to say, hey, thanks.
If they were
Hell.
praising the Citadel, their hands would be bifurcated.
Yeah. Hell no, we won't go.
Got him.
All right. It's wholesome.
Wait.
Is it playable?
I think so. I mean, I would at least want to try it out. It's like the body's good. The activation cost is like too high, but there's abilities to reduce it. I also just realized they're spelling out until the end of time. So yeah, it's great.
All right, friends. That's going to be it for our set review today. At the end of the day, I think we're all really excited for War of the Spark. Can't wait to start adding them to our cards. Let us now move to our closing segment, Powerful Magic. And up today, it's me and chat. I have a very important story to share with all of you. It is basically a one-step guide as to how to beat Benjamin Wheeler in Highlander.
Can I go?
Now, an important thing to note is Ben and I have a long and storied career of playing each other, and this might shock some of you, but I don't win a lot of these games. I try, and I get so far. No, but yeah, I got a win on him on the Friday Night Paper Fight league that we had last Friday.
Notably, a game, not a match.
Damn it! Yeah,
You just had to take that from him.
let me have. You're embarrassing
Gotta
me.
set
Yeah.
the record straight.
So I'm playing blue-white, hate bear, tempo-y sort of thing like that. Ben is on some type of monstrosity called medium green. And I will tell the board state on some of the relevant parts here. There's a bunch of cards, but Wheeler controls Ronis, the old Ronis god,
The
which
Indomitable?
Yeah.
The snowman.
Ronis the Abominable Snowman, which is a 5/5 with Death Touch and Indestructible, comes down at 3, but it can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. And for 2 and a green, another target creature you control gains trample until end of turn, +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. Another target creature. Now, for whatever reason, Ben's Ronis is in Russian. Oh,
I think that's what I posted, right?
No.
Well,
Oh,
close
that's
enough.
English.
yeah.
Close enough. looks like Cyrillic.
Ben also has a GT, and now my board has a lot of like pretty good creatures, hate bears. I think I've got like a new Thalia in play. I've also got a Mirren Crusader, and Mirren Crusader is 3 mana, 2/2, protection from green, protection from black, and double strike. Now, Ben is in the tank thinking about his turn. A bunch of stuff is going on there. He's got some other creatures in play, so Ronis is able to attack, and is just like, oh, I've got it. Equips Ronis with the GT and attacks me. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. And notably, there's some interesting interactions here where Death Touch and Trample will carry over damage. Sorry, I just hit the microphone. Will carry over damage through a Mirren Crusader, at which point the GT will be online, at which point GT takes over the game and kills everything. This is a crucial moment in the whole turn. It's attacking, it's carrying GT, it's got Death Touch. And then Ben goes, oh wait, I forgot I can't target my own Ronis with the activated ability. I lose.
We're crunched for time. This is just me dirting myself. And
This
You
is
just
this
want
is-
to roast
This
me?
is all it takes to beat Wheeler. If he plays a foreign card in a language and forgets how his own cards work, there's a window to win.
Look, all I'm saying is I need a German Ronis, and I need a German Ronis stat.
All right, everybody, that's going to be it for our episode today. Thank you very much for tuning in. A reminder, you can find a couple of us at the Puget Sound Battleground on May 4th for the Highlander event. We'll be at Magic Fest Seattle, June 20th to 23rd. Also a reminder that everything that we do, including North 100, is brought to you by you with your support at Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.